few years ago, while I was brushing my teeth like every morning, I felt something strange. One of my teeth was moving. At first I thought it was my imagination, that maybe it was just a bad stroke with the toothbrush. But the next day, when I ran my tongue over it, it happened again. That same tooth felt loose, as if it were dancing. I was 65 years old at the time, and the first thing I thought was, well, it must be because of age. I thought it was normal, but it wasn't. And that was my first mistake. That little movement was only the beginning of something much more serious. A warning sign I didn't know how to see, until it was too late. Today, I want to speak to you who might be feeling that a tooth is moving a little, or who have noticed something odd in your mouth and preferred not to pay attention. Maybe you think it's something normal as you get older. Maybe you're waiting for it to fix itself. But let me tell you something important. A healthy tooth does not move, not even at 80 years old. When a tooth starts to loosen, it's because something in your mouth is failing. And if you don't do something now, you could end up losing not only that tooth, but several more. And with them, your health, your comfort, and your quality of life. In this video, I'm going to tell you what causes teeth to loosen after 60, why you shouldn't wait even a single day more if you notice this problem, and most importantly, what you can do right now to slow the damage and regain control of your oral health. It's a topic very few talk about until it's already too late. That's why, if you or someone you love is over 60, I'm asking you to stay. This message can make a big difference. And before continuing, I'd like to get to know you a little more. How old are you? And from which city or country are you watching this video? Leave it in the comments. I'd love to know. Why teeth should never move, not even at 80. One of the big lies many of us have believed as we age is that teeth loosen with age, as if it were something natural, as if it were part of the process of growing older. But it isn't true. A healthy, well-cared-for tooth should never move. Not at 50, not at 70, not even at 80 years old. And if it does, it's because something important is failing. To understand it better, imagine this. Your tooth isn't simply planted in the gum as if it were a stone in the ground. It's held by a complex and perfect system. Inside your mouth, each tooth is connected to the bone by a special ligament called the periodontal ligament. That ligament acts like a kind of shock absorber. It holds the tooth firmly, but allows a microscopic flexibility when we chew. It's surrounded by gum tissue, which protects the base, and all of that rests on the alveolar bone, the bone that is part of the mandible or the maxilla. When all of that is healthy, the tooth is firm like a well-anchored root. But when the tooth begins to move visibly, that is, when you feel it loose when you touch it with your tongue, when brushing, or even when speaking, that isn't normal. It is a clear symptom that something is deteriorating underneath, and most often that something is the bone that supports it. Over the years, the jawbone can begin to lose density, but what's most concerning is when that bone loss isn't part of a general process, but is caused by a silent disease that attacks the structures that hold the tooth, periodontal disease. Periodontal disease is much more common than we think. It often begins as simple gingivitis, redness, inflammation, or bleeding gums. But if it isn't treated, it keeps advancing deeper. It affects the ligament, weakens the support, and the bone begins to resorb. And then the tooth is left loose, without a base, like a post from which the surrounding soil has been removed. And the worst thing is that many people don't realize the damage until it's too late. Because it doesn't hurt, because it doesn't always bleed, and because one believes it's an age thing. But let me tell you something that perhaps no one has told you until today. When a tooth starts to move, it is screaming. It's asking for help. It's the last cry for help it gives, before it falls out. And once it falls out, there's no going back. Yes, there are implants, prostheses, dentures, but nothing feels the same as your own teeth. Nothing chews the same. Nothing looks the same. And above all, nothing replaces the confidence of having your own complete smile. That's why it's so important that you know this. Tooth mobility is never normal. Never. Not at 60, not at 70, not even at 90. In the next part, I'm going to tell you which are the most common signs that accompany a loose tooth and how you can recognize them in time. Before that tooth says goodbye, silent signs that accompany loose teeth. Very often, when a tooth begins to move, it doesn't do so alone. It comes accompanied by small signs, symptoms that seem harmless, that we ignore, that we attribute to the passage of time. But each of them is a silent warning that something serious is happening in our mouths. Let's look at them calmly, and if any of these feel familiar, it's important that you pay attention. The first sign is bleeding when you brush. Maybe you think it's something normal, especially if you use a hard toothbrush or if you brush vigorously. But it shouldn't happen. Healthy gums don't bleed, not even if you brush them firmly. Bleeding is one of the first signs of inflammation, of an infection beginning to develop beneath the surface. The second sign is constant bad breath, even after brushing. We're not talking about strong breath after a garlicky meal. We're talking about that unpleasant odor that comes back again and again, even when you've used mouthwash. This is often a sign that bacteria have accumulated in deep gum areas where the toothbrush can't reach. The third sign is gum recession. You begin to notice that your teeth look longer, as if they had grown, but in reality, they don't grow. It's that the gum is receding. It's pulling away from the tooth, leaving the root exposed. And that's not only an aesthetic problem. It's a clear sign that the gums are weakened and the tooth's support is being lost. The fourth sign is sensitivity to cold or heat. Suddenly, a spoonful of ice cream or a sip of hot soup causes a sharp, quick pain that disappears right away. That sensitivity occurs because the root of the tooth has been left more exposed, and that exposure is usually the consequence of a receded gum or enamel loss. The fifth sign is the feeling that something doesn't fit when you bite. You eat a piece of bread and notice that your teeth no longer align the same way. Or when you close your mouth, you feel there's something off, as if one of the teeth were looser or higher. This change in your bite can indicate that a tooth has shifted slightly, and that, as you already know, is never a good sign. Now let me tell you a real story. A woman named Teresa, 68 years old, began to notice several of these symptoms. First, it was a little blood in the sink after brushing. Then, that odd breath that wouldn't go away, not even with mints. Later, the tooth next to it started to look longer, but she didn't give it importance. She thought, "It's age," and went on with her life. When she finally went to the dentist a year later, it was already late. She had lost so much bone around the affected teeth that they couldn't be saved. In total, she had to have 4 teeth extracted. 4. And the saddest thing is that it all started with a bleeding gum. That's why I want to insist on this. These signs, as small as they may seem, are alarm bells. Your body is speaking to you. It's telling you, something is happening down here, and if you don't do anything, you're going to regret it. The real cause of tooth movement in older adults. Many people believe that losing teeth is a natural consequence of aging, but it isn't. Age by itself does not loosen teeth. What loosens them is a specific silent disease that advances without you seeing it, until it has already done too much damage. That disease is called periodontitis, and if you are over 60, you need to know it well. Periodontitis is a chronic infection that affects the gums, the ligaments, and the bones that support your teeth. It is like a silent woodworm that weakens everything from the inside. It doesn't hurt at first. It doesn't cause a fever. It doesn't create a visible emergency. And that's why many people do nothing until it's already too late. It usually all begins with gingivitis, inflamed, red gums that bleed when brushing. If at that moment it's treated, the problem can be stopped completely. But if it's ignored, as happens in most cases, the infection begins to go deeper. It destroys the connective tissue, weakens the bone, and leaves the tooth without support. And then, it begins to move. Imagine a tree. On the outside it can look firm, with green leaves and a thick trunk. But if the roots are rotten, that tree can fall with the first wind. The same thing happens with your teeth. You may see them aligned, clean, pretty. But if what's underneath, the gum and the bone, is damaged, sooner or later, the tooth falls out. Now then, what causes periodontitis to appear? There are several risk factors, and many of them can be controlled. First, inadequate oral hygiene. Brushing quickly, without technique, without cleaning properly between the teeth. Not using dental floss, not getting professional cleanings every 6 months. Bacterial plaque accumulates, and over time it turns into tartar. That tartar slips under the gum, and that's where the disaster begins. Second, smoking. Smoking damages blood circulation in the gums. It makes them heal poorly, be more exposed to infections, and makes treatments work less well. It also masks symptoms. Smokers' gums bleed less, but they are sicker. Third, diabetes. High glucose levels make it harder for the body to fight infections, and if you have poorly controlled diabetes, the risk of developing periodontitis multiplies. Fourth, dry mouth. As we age, many people produce less saliva. And saliva isn't just for swallowing, it also protects. It helps control bacteria, clean debris, and keep the mouth in balance. When it's lacking, the mouth becomes fertile ground for infections. And lastly, although it may be surprising, chronic stress. Yes, stress also affects your mouth. It weakens the immune system and favors the advance of inflammatory diseases, such as periodontitis. So if your teeth are moving, don't blame age. It's not because you're 70. It's because of what's happening in your gums, in your bone, in your lifestyle, and because it wasn't addressed in time. Why waiting a few months can cost you your entire denture. When something hurts a lot, we go to the doctor quickly. But when it doesn't hurt, we let time pass. And that's exactly what happens with the disease that loosens teeth. It advances without pain, without fever, without urgent signs, until it's already too late. Periodontitis is silent, and while you live your day-to-day, it is working beneath your gums. Each week that passes, the bone that holds your teeth deteriorates a little more. The roots lose support, the gums recede, and the teeth begin to wobble, one after another. Maybe you think, well, if I lose a tooth, I'll see what to do then. But the problem is that when one falls, the others weaken too. Just like in a row of dominoes, when the first falls, the next ones fall as well. Why? Because each tooth has neighbors that help keep it steady. When one is missing, the ones beside it lose support. They begin to tip, to move, to work overtime. And then, the wear accelerates. And over time, what started with a single loose tooth ends up becoming a mouthful of empty spaces. Now then, what happens when several teeth have already been lost? First, difficulties eating arrive. Many foods, apples, nuts, meat, become impossible. You lose the pleasure of chewing with confidence, and in many cases, you start avoiding solid food, falling into a soft diet poor in nutrients. That brings consequences: weight loss, lack of energy, digestive problems. Second, there's the blow to self-esteem. There are people who stop smiling, who speak hiding their mouths, who avoid photos or family gatherings out of embarrassment, and that generates isolation, sadness, insecurity. And third, there's the economic and physical cost of trying to recover what was lost. A single dental implant can cost as much as an entire trip. And when you need 4, 5, or more, the expense becomes unattainable for many. In addition, not all older adults are candidates for implants. You need good bone condition, stable overall health, and time for the surgical process. And if it isn't possible, the option is a denture, which, if not well made, can cause discomfort, insecurity, and even sores. All of this can be avoided with a simple action. Go to the dentist when the problem is still small, when the tooth is just starting to move, when it can still be saved. There are treatments such as deep scaling, periodontal cleaning, local antibiotics, or even stabilizing splints that can prevent definitive loss. But if you wait, if you let weeks, months, or even years pass, that tooth that moves a little today will be gone tomorrow. And with it, a chain of problems can begin that will affect not only your mouth, but your health, your emotional well-being, and your quality of life. One visit today can prevent years of suffering. Truly, I don't say it to frighten you. I say it because I've lived it, because I've seen it many times, and because I know how much one regrets it when it's already late. Here's what you must do immediately if a tooth is moving. If you're here, It's because perhaps you've noticed something odd in your mouth. A tooth that no longer feels so firm, a discomfort when you bite, or simply you want to be prepared in case that happens. Whatever your case, the important thing is this: don't wait. There are things you can and should do immediately to stop the damage. The first and most urgent is to visit the dentist, but not for a routine cleaning. It isn't enough to have the visible tartar removed or be given a pain pill. You need to ask for a complete periodontal diagnosis. That means the dentist should not only look at your smile, they must check the condition of your gums, the ligaments, and the bone that supports each tooth. Most older people who lose teeth do so because the internal condition of the mouth was never evaluated. And many times, even after years of superficial cleanings, the infection kept growing underneath. That's why the second fundamental step is to get a dental X-ray. A simple image can show the specialist whether the surrounding bone is healthy or if there's already bone loss. It can reveal cysts, periodontal pockets, or compromised roots. And thanks to that X-ray, treatment can be planned before the damage advances further. Then comes daily care at home. And here there are several important points. First, change the way you brush. You should use a toothbrush with soft but firm bristles and brush with circular motions without pressing too hard, at least twice a day. But most important, don't forget to clean between your teeth. Dental floss is indispensable even if you've never used it before. Yes, at first it's hard, but once you learn the technique, it only takes a few minutes. And that little thread can save you several teeth. In addition to floss, an interdental brush is very useful. It's a small brush, like a little bristled pick, that goes into the spaces where floss doesn't reach. Ideal for people with spaced teeth or receded gums. And don't forget the rinse. But not just any rinse. You should use one that's antiseptic, preferably with chlorhexidine or natural ingredients like tea tree oil or xylitol. This helps reduce the bacterial load in your mouth and keep the gums clean. If the dentist detects that there's an active infection, they may prescribe antibiotic therapy. This isn't always necessary, but in more advanced cases, using specific antibiotics, in pills or applied directly in the gums, can stop the disease from progressing and allow the tissues to regenerate. In certain cases, if the tooth is already somewhat loose but can still be saved, the specialist can place a dental splint. The splint is like a small support that links the affected tooth with neighboring teeth, creating a kind of bridge that keeps it steady while the bone and tissue recover. It doesn't hurt, it isn't bothersome, and it can make the difference between saving a tooth or losing it. And lastly, something essential: follow-up. A single treatment isn't enough. You need to return to the dentist every 3 or 6 months to make sure the recovery process is going well. Just as you go to the cardiologist to check your heart, you should also care for your mouth with the same seriousness. Because remember, the mouth isn't only for smiling, it's for eating, speaking, connecting. And losing a tooth for not acting in time is something that, believe me, hurts much more than a dental visit. The best natural remedies to strengthen gums and slow the damage. Before continuing, I want to make something very clear. Natural remedies can help a lot, but they do not replace a visit to the dentist. There is no infusion, plant, or essential oil that can cure advanced periodontitis by itself. That said, there truly are home resources that can accompany professional treatment, relieve symptoms, strengthen your gums, and help slow the advance of damage. And the best part is that they are easy to apply, safe, and often inexpensive. Let's start with one of the oldest and most effective: sage infusion. Sage is a medicinal plant with antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties. You can prepare an infusion with a tablespoon of dried leaves in a cup of boiling water. Let it steep for a few minutes, strain it, and once it cools, use it as a mouthwash twice a day. This helps soothe irritated gums, reduce inflammation, and freshen breath. It isn't miraculous, but used consistently, it makes a difference. Another classic: rinses with warm water and salt. This simple remedy has a very logical reason. Salt acts as a natural antiseptic. A teaspoon dissolved in half a cup of warm water can help disinfect the gums, reduce swelling, and relieve mild pain. Swish for 30 seconds, spit, and repeat once or twice a day. And if you've ever used clove, you know how potent it can be. Clove contains eugenol, a substance with analgesic and antiseptic effects. You can boil 2 or 3 cloves in half a cup of water, let it cool, and use it as a rinse. Or wet a cotton swab with diluted clove essential oil and apply it gently to inflamed gums. Another little-known but very useful resource is massaging with coconut oil. Coconut oil has antimicrobial properties thanks to lauric acid, and at the same time, it hydrates the gums and improves their flexibility. Place a small amount on your clean finger and gently massage the gums for a few minutes. Do it once a day, ideally before bed. It's a way to stimulate circulation and nourish the tissue at the same time. But natural care isn't only applied from the outside. What you eat is vital too. Foods rich in vitamin C, such as kiwi, oranges, broccoli, or peppers, strengthen connective tissue and combat inflammation. A lack of this vitamin can make gums bleed more and weaken. Calcium, for its part, is essential to maintain the density of the bone that supports the teeth. Include dairy, almonds, spinach, and sardines in your diet. And if your doctor approves, you can consider specific supplements. We can't forget collagen, the protein that gives structure to the gums. With the years, we produce less, and it shows. You can find collagen in bone broths, natural gelatins, fish, and certain hydrolyzed supplements. And lastly, something many don't associate with oral health: movement. Yes, moving also helps your gums. Why? Because it improves overall circulation, including the facial and mandibular area. Walking every day, doing gentle neck and jaw exercises, or even practicing deep breathing, all of that helps blood reach the tissues of your mouth better. And well-perfused tissue defends itself better. Remember, these remedies aren't magic solutions. But if you add them to good treatment and make them part of your daily routine, they can make a real difference. Sometimes by trying to do things right, we end up making them worse. Not out of bad intentions, of course, but out of ignorance, habit, or because no one explained how to truly care for our teeth at this age. Today, I want to tell you about 5 very common mistakes I see in older people with gum problems. Mistakes that seem small, but can speed up tooth loss. The first mistake, using toothpicks or very hard toothbrushes. Many people, after eating, clean their teeth with a wooden toothpick. They believe it's harmless, but those toothpicks can damage the gums, push debris inward, and even open spaces between teeth over time. And the same goes for overly hard toothbrushes. Some people think the harder the brush, the cleaner everything gets. But that isn't so. Hard bristled brushes can injure the gums, wear down enamel, and speed up recession. Instead of protecting teeth, they weaken them. The second mistake, brushing with too much force. Has it ever happened that, while brushing, you feel you're scrubbing vigorously, as if you were cleaning a pot? That, far from helping, can cause more damage. Gums don't need force, they need gentleness and consistency. Brushing should last at least 2 minutes, but with soft circular motions, not violent back and forth strokes. Remember, you're cleaning living tissue, not a tile. The third mistake, not using floss for fear that the gums will bleed. This is something I hear all the time. Doctor, I don't use floss because every time I pass it, my gums bleed. But that bleeding is not a reason to stop using it. It's a sign that you need to use it more. Gums bleed because they are inflamed, and that inflammation is caused by bacteria accumulated between the teeth. Using floss helps remove those bacteria. And over time, if you're consistent, that bleeding disappears because the gums strengthen. Avoiding floss only allows the problem to worsen. The fourth mistake, avoiding the dentist out of embarrassment or fear of being scolded. Yes, this is more common than you imagine. Many older people stop going to the dentist because they feel embarrassed. They think the professional is going to scold them for having waited so long, or they think it's already too late to do anything. But I tell you this with complete sincerity. No real dentist is there to judge you. They are there to help you. It doesn't matter if a year, 5, or 10 have gone by without going. What matters is that you do it now. And believe me, when you arrive and explain what's happening, the relief you feel for having taken that step is priceless. And the fifth mistake, self-medicating with antibiotics. Many people, upon noticing that the gum is inflamed or bleeding, look for an antibiotic pill left over from another time. They take it on their own. And although sometimes the inflammation goes down, they aren't fixing anything. On the contrary, they are masking the problem, and they are also helping bacteria become more resistant. That complicates later treatments. Antibiotics should be used only under professional guidance at the right time with the right dose. Using them just in case can do more harm than good. In short, small habits like brushing hard, using hard brushes, or avoiding the dentist out of fear may seem harmless. But if you're losing dental support, every mistake counts. Real stories of those who ignored the problem and what happened next. Sometimes, what opens our eyes the most isn't data or advice, but stories. Stories of people like you or me. People who one day noticed that a tooth was moving and had to make a decision. Do something or let it pass. Today I want to tell you two real stories. One hurts, the other inspires. The first is the story of Charles, a 70-year-old man. Charles was an active man, one of those who never complain. He played with his grandkids, went out walking every day, and rarely went to the doctor, much less to the dentist. One day, while chewing an apple, he noticed that one of his front teeth was moving a little. He thought it was because of the fruit. Nothing's wrong, he told himself. It'll stabilize. The months went by. That tooth kept moving. And then another started, and another. Charles didn't tell anyone. He was embarrassed. And when his wife insisted he see the dentist, he answered that it was part of aging. After a year, Charles had lost 6 teeth, and not by accident, not from a blow, but from not acting in time. He lost the ones in front, the ones on the sides. And with them, he lost something else: the confidence to laugh, the ease of eating, and the assurance when speaking. Today he uses a partial prosthesis that bothers him.
He says that if he could go back, he would do it without hesitation.
Because what happened to him wasn't because of age.
It was because he waited.
Now listen to Mary's story, a 68-year-old woman. Mary also felt that one of her molars was moving a little. It was just a mild, almost imperceptible annoyance. But something didn't sit right with her. She remembered that her mother had lost all her teeth at 70, and she didn't want to repeat that story. So she made an appointment. They took an X-ray. The diagnosis? Early stage periodontitis. The good news? It was treatable. Mary began with deep cleanings, local antibiotics, and a splint to stabilize the loosest tooth. She started using floss every day. She took care of her diet, cut out sugar, and even began massaging her gums with coconut oil. Today, 2 years later, she hasn't lost a single tooth. She eats everything. She laughs without covering her mouth. And when her friends ask what she did, she answers with a smile, "I just decided not to wait." These stories are different, but they have something in common. Both had a sign, a warning. The difference was how they reacted to it. That's why I want you to keep this idea. It's not just about aesthetics. It's not just about having a pretty smile. It's about health, dignity, quality of life. Because when you can chew well, you nourish yourself better. When you can speak with confidence, you communicate with assurance. And when you can smile without fear, you feel more like yourself. Your teeth are not a luxury. They are a fundamental part of your well-being. And if today you have one that's moving, you are not condemned. You are on time. You are always on time, if you decide to act. How oral health affects the rest of the body after 60. Many people think that problems in the mouth stay in the mouth, but that isn't so, and even less so after 60. At this age, every part of the body connects more deeply with the others, and oral health, far from being a minor topic, can be the first sign that something more serious is brewing. Today I want to tell you how an inflamed gum, a loose tooth, or an infection in the mouth can affect much more than you think. First, the heart. Yes, just as you hear it. The bacteria living in a diseased gum don't stay there. They enter the bloodstream and travel through the body. And when they reach the heart, they can cause serious inflammations, such as bacterial endocarditis, or speed up pre-existing cardiovascular diseases. Several studies have shown that people with periodontal disease are at higher risk of heart attacks or strokes, and not by coincidence. It's that chronic inflammation in the mouth creates a state of permanent alert in the immune system, and that wears the body down. Then there's digestion, because to digest well, you first have to chew well. And when a tooth is missing, or when chewing hurts, you begin to avoid certain foods. You stop eating meat, hard fruits, salads, nuts. And without realizing it, your diet becomes poorer, softer, and often less nutritious. That can cause digestive problems such as acidity, constipation, or poor nutrient absorption. And little by little, it also affects your energy, your mobility, your mood. And let's talk about appetite. When eating hurts, you stop wanting to eat. Each meal becomes an inconvenience. And with that comes something more dangerous: loss of appetite. Eating less not only weakens the body, it also reduces muscle mass, affects the immune system, and makes you more prone to infections and falls. All because of something that began with simple bleeding gums or a loose tooth. And if we add that many older people already have conditions such as diabetes, hypertension, or kidney problems, the impact is even greater. An oral infection, however small it may seem, can destabilize blood sugar, alter blood pressure, or cause fever in frail people. And we come to malnutrition. It may sound exaggerated, but it is a silent reality. Thousands of older people live with anemia, weakness, or fatigue without knowing that the origin is in their mouths. Not because they don't want to eat, but because they can't. And finally, something that's sometimes forgotten: mental health. Yes, losing teeth affects self-esteem, the confidence to speak, to laugh, to live. Many people isolate themselves, stop going out, stop sharing, out of embarrassment or discomfort. And that eats away at mood and joy as well. For all these reasons, I want you to remember a phrase: your mouth is the gateway to your health. It isn't a separate part of the body. It is the first line of defense. What enters through your mouth nourishes or harms everything else. Caring for it isn't a luxury, it's a priority. How to keep your teeth firm and strong after 60? At this point, you might be wondering, what can I do now to keep my teeth as long as possible? The answer is simpler than it seems. It doesn't require expensive treatments or miracles, just consistency, attention, and a few key habits. Here I'm sharing 5 pillars you should follow if you want to keep your teeth firm and healthy after 60 years of age. First, hygiene twice a day with good technique. It's not just about brushing out of habit. It's about doing it well. Twice a day, for at least 2 minutes, with a soft bristled toothbrush and gentle circular motions. Don't forget the gums or the tongue. And if you can, finish with a good alcohol-free mouthwash. But above all, use dental floss every day. Yes, every day. Even if your gums bleed, even if it seems uncomfortable. Better 1 minute of discomfort than an entire life without teeth. Second, dental checkups every 6 months, even if you feel no pain. Many people believe that if it doesn't hurt, there's no problem. But gum problems advance silently. When pain arrives, sometimes it's already late. A checkup every 6 months can detect in time any infection, recession, or weakness in the bone. And if there's something to treat, it's done before it becomes an emergency. Remember, going to the dentist isn't an expense. It is an investment in your health and peace of mind. Third, avoid very sugary or sticky foods. After 60, your mouth doesn't have the same defensive capacity. Saliva decreases, gums are more sensitive, and bacteria have it easier. Sticky sweets like candies, jams, commercial pastries, or sugared gum stay between the teeth longer and feed the bacteria, and that speeds up the damage. It's not about forbidding yourself anything, but about moderating and, above all, cleaning well after eating them. Fourth, beware of poorly fitted dentures. If you use a partial or full prosthesis, make sure it's well adapted. A loose denture or one that rubs in one spot can cause wounds, infections, bone loss, and mobility in the teeth you still have. Don't ignore discomfort. A simple visit to adjust your prosthesis can save you many problems. And if you still have most of your teeth, care for them like a treasure. Nothing replaces natural teeth. Fifth, maintain good hydration and care for your saliva. Saliva doesn't only serve to moisten the mouth, it plays a vital role in your oral health. It cleans food debris, neutralizes acids, and protects against bacteria. But with age, many suffer from dry mouth. And that can be due to medications, lack of water, or even anxiety. Drink enough water throughout the day. Avoid alcohol and tobacco, which dry the mouth even more. And if your mouth feels very dry, consult your doctor or dentist. Sometimes saliva substitutes or natural products that stimulate production can be used. Remember, a hydrated mouth is a protected mouth. These 5 simple actions can make a huge difference in your day-to-day life and in your future. Because at this age, it's not just about living more years, but about living them well. Eating what you like, speaking clearly, laughing without fear, and maintaining your dignity. All of that begins with a healthy mouth. If I could go back in time, to that exact moment when I noticed my first loose tooth, I would do one thing differently. I would have asked for help immediately, because now I know. That tooth wasn't aging, it was asking for help. And if I had listened in time, if I hadn't waited months, if I hadn't told myself, it will pass, today I would probably still have my full smile. But since I can't change the past, I can tell you this today, so that you don't make the same mistake. So that you understand that a loose tooth is not normal, that it isn't age or fate or genetics. It's a sign, and it's in your hands to do something now, not tomorrow. Throughout this video, we talked about a lot, about the silent signs that accompany a loose tooth, about the most common causes such as periodontitis, about what happens when we don't act in time, and also about what you can do to care for your mouth, strengthen your gums, and keep your teeth firm for many more years. We also shared stories of real people with mistakes and successes, stories that, like yours or mine, remind us that it's never too late to make better decisions. So if today you feel that one of your teeth dances a little, don't ignore it. If you notice that your gums bleed or that your denture is moving, listen to that sign. Take action. Ask for help. Do it for you. Do it for your health, for your dignity, and for that smile that so deserves to be cared for. Before you go, I'd love to know something about you. Do you have any loose tooth? How old are you, and from which country or city are you watching me? I'm reading you in the comments. And if this message reached you, if it made you think, share it.
Share it with your children, with your siblings, with your friends, with your parents.
Because sometimes a simple video like this can save one smile, or many. Thank you for staying until the end. And remember, your health begins with your mouth. Take care of it today to smile tomorrow.